Hello everyone, welcome and thank you for joining. We're in this quick video due to a lot of requests. We're taking a look at Bastion damage and DPS with Particle Deconstruction, but I've also put it up against another exotic kinetic weapon, Arbalest, so normal fusion versus linear. This video has a slightly tweaked format with an on-screen comparison between the two and damage numbers that are updating as the weapons are fired, providing what I think is a rather interesting take on burst DPS. So, let's get into it. Now, as with all my tests, a single loader mod was used and nothing to boost reserves. The final mag for both weapons was full or close to full, therefore no rounds have been omitted from testing. It's assumed that for every round or burst, the Particle Deconstruction debuff is fully procced, and this is for two reasons. Firstly, to level the playing field a little, since Bastion can fully proc it much quicker, and secondly, with a little bit of a spoiler here, neither of these weapons do particularly well compared to other options, so I don't think it's unfair to test them this way. I will, however, include the damage and DPS numbers when proccing the seasonal mod on the DPS table. So, starting with Bastion damage numbers. For those that don't know, this fires 3 quick bursts per single round, so damage for each of those rounds is the sum of those 3 bursts. The numbers were a little funky, sometimes I had 7 values on screen per individual burst, while occasionally that would drop to 3, 2 or even 1. With Particle Deconstruction fully procced, it tended to be 2 or 3. Despite that anomaly though, the total damage per burst and therefore round was always the same. A table is coming onto screen now to demonstrate 2 different examples that I experienced during testing. I've also included the opening round damage for those who are interested, and if you are, then you might also like to know that Bastion can fully proc Particle Deconstruction in time for the second round, so like most fusion rifles do. I could hold 15 rounds in total with nothing to boost that, and each magazine could hold 4, which means 3 mags of 4 and a final of 3, with the assumption that the seasonal mod debuff was active for every round. With damage for each coming in at 75,390, this brought total damage for 15 rounds to 1,130,850. Now, this is the part where I'd normally show the weapons firing with a timer, but like I've said, this has a slightly tweaked format where the timings for both will be on screen at the same time, since I'm treating this as a kind of showdown. So before that happens, let's take a look at Arbalest damage. This is much simpler than Bastion due to it just being one single projectile, with the breakdown coming onto screen now, demonstrating the damage as it procs Particle Deconstruction. Now again, the bulk of the numbers you see assume this debuff is fully procced, which for Arbalest brought damage per round to 53,992. I could hold 20 in reserves with nothing to boost that, and each magazine could hold 5, therefore it's just 4 full mags. This meant total damage for the test came in at 1,079,840. So, the timings, taking a look at both at the same time, in sync, and what is coming onto screen now. The damage value at the top, which reads 0 at the moment, will increase for Bastion once a third burst from a round has been fired. Of course, for Arbalest, it's just 1 burst and will go up when that's fired. I'm going to pause the video at both moments when each has emptied its first magazine, just to talk a little about burst DPS. So letting it play, and while they do leapfrog a little, Arbalest is ahead for more of the time. Pausing the video now at the moment when Arbalest empties its first mag, with some DPS numbers coming onto screen. And at this point here, just before 5 seconds, Arbalest has done more damage, and therefore has better burst DPS up to this point. That being 56,242 compared to 47,119. But if we let it play a little more and stop at the moment that Bastion has fired its final round in the opening mag, we get this, where the numbers have switched, with Bastion having done more damage and therefore more burst DPS. Of course, damage for Arbalest hasn't increased since the last pause because it's still in the reload animation, so the average DPS has gone down because the time has increased. You may also notice in a moment that this is a common theme for the entire time that these two weapons are firing, with Bastion briefly overtaking whenever Arbalest is reloading. So which is better for burst DPS? Do we count up to around 5 seconds or for a full opening mag? These weapons are incredibly close at this point, so it's not really possible to say or even worth debating. Personally, I'd take Bastion, less range aside, because if a fire team member hasn't procced Particle Deconstruction and it's down to me to do it, this is much better than Arbalest. It doesn't require precision shots, and it has an intrinsic perk to stun unstoppable champions. So letting the time eclipse play out now and ending with a sustained DPS number. So Bastion does more total damage with base reserves, but Arbalest has better average sustained DPS, as it empties all of its rounds much quicker. With this in mind, and since they are quite close in all areas, I personally would make the decision based on whether a fire team member will be proccing Particle Deconstruction or not, if a little more range would be beneficial, and what champions could be encountered. This could change slightly though once Arbalest receives an intrinsic anti-barrier perk. So the full fusion and linear fusion rifle DPS table is coming onto screen now with these two weapons added. Numbers have been included for all rounds with Particle Deconstruction fully proc, and as promised, with the weapons proccing it themselves. Pause the video now if you want a little more time to look at this as we're moving on to the graph. Bringing both weapons on at the same time, and as we've seen during the split screen section, Arbalest is ahead until reloading, which is when Bastion briefly takes the lead. The reason you don't see any leapfrogging during magazines is because these lines are just averages, lines of best fit if you will. I'd need to show every instance of damage as a vertical line, and trust me when I'm saying this, that makes the graph look really bad and messy when you're firing for this long. Now, we've already discussed these two weapons, so let's bring on some examples from other videos, those being Merciless, Null Composure, Cartesian Coordinate with Accelerated Coils and Vorpal Weapon, 1000 Voices, Lorentz Driver with Particle Deconstruction proc for every round, Sleeper Simulant, and finally Threaded Needle with Liquid Coils, Clown Cartridge and Vorpal Weapon. No read regret here, as the ludicrous amount of total damage with triple tap means everything else on the graph needs to be really small. So as expected, neither of these can come close to the heavies, which I've included for context, but I'd say they're quite well matched with Null Composure and at some points even Merciless, which is where you'd expect them to be. The exception is, of course, Cartesian Coordinate with Vorpal Weapon, but that's nearly trading blows with 1k, so I never expected Bastion or Arbalest to come close to that. As I've said before, my personal choice will almost always be Bastion if I had to choose between these two. Forget the slightly better DPS per mag for Arbalest, the extra damage per mag from Bastion I feel will be more useful. Sustained is also close, and despite Arbalest having higher DPS for that category, I can't ignore the fact that Bastion can proc Particle Deconstruction with one round, doesn't require precision shots and can stun unstoppables. Once Arbalest has its anti-barrier perk, it might be more viable and worthy of that exotic slot. Doubtful, but maybe. So if anyone here is new to the channel and wondering where the breakdown in numbers are from for the other weapons in the DPS table or the graph, they were covered across 3 different videos. The first one taking a look at fusion rifles, the only problem here being no catalyst for Telesto, which I do plan to fix, and Cartesian was with high impact reserves. But the video after addresses the latter of those and was dedicated to Cartesian with Vorpal Weapon and compared liquid and accelerated coils, while the third video published was focused on linear fusion rifles. Links to all those in the description down below. By the time this video goes live, I expect Bungie to have confirmed firing line will be fixed, so expect the next video to be all about Reed's regret with that and triple tap, but I am hoping to do some extensive testing between some different coil and battery perks, those being accelerated and liquid coils and enhanced and ionized battery. But until then, that is all from me. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're not already, and give me any feedback in the comments down below. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.